All right, we'll see if that gets better. All right, well, I appreciate you all joining. I'm sure several more will hop on. We had quite a few actually sign up and register to do this webinar, and really we need to make this a regular thing, especially as we roll out new features and have additional questions and so on. So I appreciate you all joining tonight. My name is Nate Haggerty, Programming Manager for Next Inspect, and I've met several of you over in Vegas, and spoke with many of you over the phone and via email as well. And I see some new names on here also, which is great. So please feel free to stop me throughout this webinar if you have questions, if I'm not explaining something properly, or if you would like more clarity. Just let me know. I'm going to try to monitor the question chat bar as well, or you can just chime in and take yourself off mute and ask the question, and I'll try to explain it as best as possible. So I'd like to go through a quick demo of just what the actual booking process would look like, mainly from an external standpoint for the client or an agent, and then we'll look at some of the internal features and functionality that an admin or inspector or call center rep would be able to go through. All right, what we're looking at here is an external screen that shows when you have multiple inspectors on your account. So you can see we have 3 inspectors shown, and it shows their name, their photo, their avatar if you have one set up, when they're next available, and you can select each individual inspector to go into their specific calendar. You also can click on calendar view, and I've jumped right to this view. And what this does is it shows a very condensed, aggregated calendar of all available time slots. And again, this would be visible externally from clients and agents, and they can quickly see if you have availability in the near future. So if we click on, we see if we have available 5 on the 25th. We click on the 25th, and it loads and shows us everyone that is available on the 25th. They can then select the inspector and the time that they want to set their appointment for, if it is available. We're going to jump into that screen here momentarily on the booking, but I just wanted to show you another way that you can deploy your calendar, and that's embedding it directly onto your website. So I'm going to jump over to a website here that has the embedded calendar on it. And if we scroll down to a schedule section or a schedule page, you can see that this is a real-time calendar, shows when you're booked and when you're available. And these booked time slots here could mean that you are in fact booked with an appointment, or it could mean that you have closed off that day or that time slot, or you placed them on hold. So if you're going to go on vacation, you can just mark your availability as booked. They don't need to know that you're not out inspecting. They can just know that you're not available. So clicking on any one of these available time slots here would then take you to the booking screen, and the client, agent, call center would be able to then jump in and actually start the booking process. So if we jump in to available time slot here, I'm going to pick one that is for myself at 8:30 on the 31st. So we have an appointment booking screen here. Most of these appointment fields are customizable from the standpoint of determining whether or not you want to show or hide them, or mark them as required or optional fields that must be filled out or can be filled out, but they're not necessary. You can see that the ones that are denoted as required, that I've denoted as required, show as a red asterisk. As we move down the screen, we can see this little note at the top here: to accommodate your schedule, the start time of this appointment can be adjusted to any time between 8 and 10. So this is an 8:30 a.m. appointment time slot, but I've set this up, and you have the ability to not give them the ability to adjust it, but I've set this up to allow for 30 minutes before and an hour and a half after that they actually have the ability to move that 8:30 time slot in between. So you have that ability. So if you want to give them the ability to, instead of creating an 8 a.m., a 9 a.m., and a 10 a.m. time slot, just create an 8 a.m. time slot and then allow it to be booked anytime between 8 and say 10 a.m. as the start time. So if the client wants to start a little bit earlier, they can pick any time between 8 and 10, hit save, and now they can continue on with the booking. I'm going to fill this one out pretty quickly here. Now, a lot of these attributes that I'm filling out are also related to the pricing model, and you can charge additional fees or discounts based on the attributes that are entered in here. Foundation, property type, inspection type, they're all attributes that have the ability to associate additional fees or discounts. Of course, square footage, you have the ability to calculate based on square footage, or you can go off of a fee based on a flat schedule, or you can go on a base plus model. So we'll look into the pricing model and how to set that up here shortly once we get over to the admin screens. All right, moving down through here, I'll go ahead and select a realtor. If a realtor is already in your list, they'll pop up as you start to type. You can then select them without having to type any further information. And it also gives you the ability to see the email and the phone number and any additional information. This is just for because I'm logged in and I'm able to see this additional information about the agent. The additional services that are offered by this inspector are now shown in here. You have the ability to charge or to have a fee that is based on with a home inspection or without a home inspection or as a standalone service. So you can change that from the internal screens as well. Let's say with this particular property, we're going to select a couple additional services to add on. How the customer expects to pay or what they mention over the phone. Who's going to be present at the inspection. And then you can go ahead and put in some additional comments in here as well. All right, you'll notice across the top, we do kind of have a wizard. It shows that you have 3 steps: enter details, review the details and price, and then your inspection is scheduled. So really, there's only 2 steps. You enter the information. You're now on the review screen right now. And the last step essentially is to click confirm. So we want to make sure that, that you don't stop right here, that they do review the information. So we have a little warning up top. This now shows the information that I just entered in a more condensed format where you can quickly view it. And as we scroll down, we can now see the calculated price based on the pricing model that has been set up. Looking over at a couple questions that have just been added to the chat room. This is what a client would see when booking online. Yes, they would see a few less items. So I'm logged in now. They wouldn't be able to adjust the time from here, adjust the pricing individually, or add internal notes, but they would be able to see all those previous fields from the other screen. You are able to add, another question is, can you add more than one inspector to a job? Yes, you are able to add more than one inspector to a job. I'll show you how to do that. And again, a client wouldn't be able to do that. They don't know when a second inspector or a third is necessary to a job, so that's going to be taken care of from the internal screens. So we're on the review screen. We can scroll down. This also gives the ability now to display any package upgrades that we want to show to the client or agent. So I have 3 packages set up here. TLC, safe and sound, healthy home. TLC, $0 included with every inspection. I've also set that up to where that is automatically included with every inspection. Just and you have the ability to show that or add that automatically or not. Even if you are going to include it, you have the ability to actually show it up in their pricing table or not. And the client can then click on any one of these buttons. This whole system right here is very customizable as far as changing any of the text that you see. Any of the items or attributes of the package can be changed, including any additional services. So if I click Buy Now, this is now safe and sound is my selected package. You can see it updated my table up here, which also updated my total fee, and then the client can proceed going through and confirming this appointment. I mentioned these three panels, the adjust time, pricing, and notes. These are only shown because I'm currently logged in. So this would be shown to, say, an admin, the inspector, of course, or the call center. So they're able to make adjustments on the fly if necessary to the pricing, including adding additional line items, editing any of the line items, or adding discounts. This combined, just not to get too much in the weeds here, but with all of the additional pricing attributes, you have the ability to show them as itemized or as combined. And if you show them as combined, then what it does is it, of course, is a pricing line item. There's $20 for an additional postal code in this particular case, but it does not show that to your client up here. It instead combines that $20 into the price of the inspection, and that's what the client would see. Additional services and packages are always shown as itemized. You don't have the ability to combine those into the actual home inspection. All right, so at the bottom, and then notes here would be internal notes, and again, that could be additional items that would only be seen by admin and the inspector. So if you need to put out a warning to the inspector or make sure you check on something in particular based on client comments or agent comments, you're able to put that here. So you can go back and make any adjustments. You can click confirm, or you're able to click quote only. Quote only, what that does is it still saves all the information that's just entered, and then allows you to send out a quote email to the client saying thank you for quoting. Here's what we quoted, and they can then choose to process and convert that to an actual or full inspection. From there, you also have the ability to, of course, see how many have been quoted over the course of time if they do not get converted. And clients and agents are able to click the quote only button as well. So if they just come to here and they decide not to proceed, maybe they'll click the quote only. If they decide not to proceed and they click the X and actually close down the browser, we still have all that information that they just entered, and that actually goes in as a abandoned appointment and sends an email automatically to the inspector or admin, and that just gives you the opportunity to follow up with that client or agent and see if they have any additional questions about this. Maybe they forgot, maybe they didn't see one more step. Please review and click confirm. They could have overlooked it. Maybe they have additional questions or possibly price shopping, and that gives you the opportunity to call them back and see if you can answer any additional questions they may have. So if they stop right here and close down the browser and don't go any further, we still have the information. You still get an automatic email through the system. We're going to go ahead and confirm this appointment, though. Let's see, Jim. Can you change inspectors once you start an order? Mid-order if need be. So you do have the ability to change inspectors after the order is placed. Mid-order, I would need to see how we can make that happen, Jimmy. So let me write that down as a possible enhancement to be added. All right, so we are now in the internal appointment profile screen has now loaded. And if the client or the agent is the one doing the filling it out, then they're not going to see this screen. This is internal to admin, call center reps, and the inspector that it's assigned to. So if I were not logged in, they would see a step 3 successful booking. Thank you so much. You'll be receiving emails shortly, and so on, and then have the opportunity to go back to your website or back to the calendar to book another appointment if needed, if it's an agent. So, but on this appointment profile screen, this basically shows you all the information that we just collected and additional information. This is where we can see essentially those same details to the left. We see all the parties involved, and if the inspector was requested, buyer's agent, seller's agent, closing coordinator, and so on would show up here in the parties, and we're able to add and remove inspectors up here also. So I can add an additional inspector to this screen or to this appointment right here. And now we have Nate still the inspector. The secondary inspector is John, and then Kathy is the agent. And you can add multiple inspectors to this. What happens with John if I were to add him as a secondary inspector, and he has a time slot of his own that overlaps with October 31st at 8 a.m. Well, what happens is it will close off his time slot and mark it as that he's assisting Nate on this particular appointment. So you do have the ability to double book if you want, but it doesn't allow you to do that unless you specifically open up a new time slot on that overlapping or double book time slot. Let's see, do agents have a way to order from their phone or only by visiting our site? So they can order from their phone in that the system is set up as a fully responsive website. And that just means that it is mobile friendly and you can order from your phone. So it's not a mobile app. It's not an app that you would download from the Google Play or the App Store. But they do have the ability to bookmark the page or bookmark your particular your calendar. They click on that, it shows them the real-time calendar as soon as it loads, and they can order from their phone. Being able to use your own numbering system, we do have it on the list to add additional text fields and a few other checkboxes and so on that would allow you to change your numbering system. So we do assign an order ID just by virtue of counting up essentially for your account on order, but you would be able to adjust that as well for your system once we add that field to the system. All right, so if the start time, which we did adjust, needs to be adjusted again, you can quickly adjust it from the appointment actions, change it to a different time if we want to switch from 8 to 9, and then you have the ability to notify all parties or not. So if it's necessary, go ahead and click that and click save. If not, then of course leave that unchecked, and that will essentially send out. If you change the time to essentially a reschedule or a change to the schedule, so it would send out an email just alerting all parties that time has been changed from 8 to 9 a.m. if you did check that box. Moving down through edit an appointment, that's just if you need to edit any of the information over here to the left. You could click edit appointment. Send the email is where you can send reports and attach PDFs or send the hyperlinks to any parties. Send confirmation emails are specific to the actual confirmation booking emails that go out automatically. Schedule a reinspection is essentially if you pointed out several things and the client wants you to come back in a week, 2 weeks to see if they have been fixed properly or correctly or fully. You can schedule a reinspection. What that does is it allows you to create a new appointment, but without having to re-enter all that information a second time. We already have the client's information, the property information, and so on. So schedule a reinspection allows you essentially a reorder without having to double enter all that additional information. And swap inspectors is essentially allows me to say, well, Nate's booked at, of course, 8 a.m. on the 31st. And John is booked at 8 a.m. on the 31st for a different appointment, I think he would be better suited, or it might make his drive easier. He's closer by. So if I swap Nate and John's appointments for a particular day, so I can just swap inspectors from here, pick anyone other than Nate, of course, because I'm swapping Nate on this appointment with somebody else. And I pick a particular day in the future that does have availability. And it would then allow me to select them if I find someone. So that would be, I could pick John here. And again, I can notify all parties if necessary that we're making a switch in the inspectors, or I can just leave that be and not actually send out emails saying that we have switched inspectors if it doesn't need to be broadcasted. All right, moving down through, you're able to add additional internal notes. If there were any added by the admin at time of booking, you would see them here, or you can add additional notes here. They are timestamped and who added them and so on. So if somebody from the call center is adding notes, you'll of course know that and be able to follow up with them. Photos, we can add photos as well. And that gets reloaded. There's our photo. We can add additional or as many as we need to. You notice that we have an activity log down to the left, and that photo uploaded happened just now, and it shows that we who added it, any captions and so on. This also shows everything that has happened so far since we started creating this appointment. So we started creating about 9:15. Emails went out at 9:17. Here's who they went to. We can view details and see the body of each one of those emails, all the confirmation emails and other ones that we're going to look at here shortly. And you have, of course, complete control over those email triggers and who to send them to, when they go out, if they're going to go out immediately or within a minute of ordering, or if you want to delay that, or maybe they're sent out 3 days later and it's a thank you follow-up email, and so on. Again, you have complete control over the email template system. All right, you can see when I added the additional inspector and then the photo. Back up, we can look at the payments, any payments that are made, how much the appointment is for, how much is still due on here, and if they have changed their payment method. Say they were expecting to pay by check, they decided not to, and they wanted to call in their credit card, you do have the ability to change the payment method here. We are integrated with Authorize.net, or you can go to any of the providers that utilize Authorize.net, so Guardian would be one of them. We are integrated with them to where you can set up your APIs, you can set up your integration IDs, and we can automatically collect credit card information through our system securely, pass that to Authorize.net for authorization, and then it can automatically capture funds once the appointment has taken place. And that can be done through, at time of signing the appointment, e-signing the appointment, the agreement. Also, you can send out emails for that your reports are ready, but if they haven't paid, they have the ability to then enter a credit card at that time as well as sending out an invoice. And if it's not paid, they have the ability to enter their credit card information at that time as well. And we can look into all that here shortly. All right, so we see our pricing panel. It shows all the line items. Some of them are shown to the client, and some of them are not. So this would be one again that is not. You do have the ability to edit any of these line items, including the price, the wording, whether or not it recalculates if the appointment is updated or edited. So you have control over that. I won't get into the weeds too much on here. And also, you do have the ability, if commercial buildings can be hard to price, so you may not want to throw out a number without you putting your eyes on it. You have the ability to say to be determined. Say if you schedule a commercial or a warehouse, then we're not going to give you a price immediately. The system will create what it thinks the price should be based on your pricing model, but it won't display that to the client. It'll just give them information that their appointment is booked and that that the inspector will be getting back to them, or office admin will be getting back to them shortly with the actual final price. So if it's set to be determined, then the information, the requested service pricing table just does not show in the emails that are sent out or on the review screen for the client. Let's see, can we edit the email templates? Yes, you can edit any of it. We set up about 16 or 18 initial email templates just so that you actually have something already in your system upon creating an account. But you can choose to edit any of those however you want. You can choose to not use those and bring over email templates from another system. Make sure that all the replacement values and the template variables, of course, line up, and most of them do. But yeah, you can create as many email templates as you like and change the triggers on those for when they send and how they send. Can we see if the email was opened? Currently, we do not have. We've got certain things in place to show if reports or if files are clicked on and viewed. And right now, if the email was open, that's kind of a tricky thing. If it's just clicked on in or looked at in Outlook, then we don't have a way to show that. Essentially, we would need to embed an image that they then say display images that then downloads from the server. So it does get into a little bit of, you know, some technicalities as to whether or not you can fully determine if an email is opened or looked at. It's usually a pretty good indicator that we can probably put in place, but currently we do not have that in place for just whether or not an email has been essentially downloaded to their Outlook or is viewed from Outlook. Do we get notified if emails are kicked back or incorrect address? Yes. So if it fails to make it to the sender, you will get an automatic email that the email was not delivered, and it was either a general bounce or a hard bounce. Sometimes it's due to very stringent spam filters. It could be bounced. So it might actually be a correct email address, but it did not actually make it to their box. You will get automatically an email stating that, and that gives you the ability to follow up with that person and resend, or if the email address was mistyped, gives you the ability to edit that email address and then resend. Can we stop them from opening a report without payment? Yes, you do have the ability to show them that reports are ready, but stop them from actually being able to get into those reports or view those reports if you have it set up to as such. Let me show you right here. We're looking at the files for this particular appointment. And right now I have it set up as the defaults for the client to view this, the reports for this particular appointment is that the agreements must be signed. Just by checking an appointment must be paid, now it stops them from opening and clicking on their any files associated with this appointment. Let's go ahead and put a couple files in. Now, Recall Check, we are integrated with them. And so upon creating and booking an appointment, we do send the information to Recall Check approximately 5 hours before the start time, just in case there's any adjustment or cancellations or so on. It doesn't go to Recall Check until 5 hours before the start time of that appointment. And once the information has been entered in through their system for all the appliances, and they create their report, it automatically then flows back into Next Inspect and is shown as a file attached to the appointment for the inspection. I'm going to go ahead and select the demo file here. Different types. Let's say this is a property home inspection. All right, so it logs when it was added, who added it. If it comes in through a system automatically, like the Recall Check, then it would show that as well. And we'll look at what that screen looks like when it keeps them from actually viewing the appointment or viewing the report. If these attributes being signed and paid have not been met. All right, let me look back over to the chat screen. So we do save when reports are able to be viewed. So these conditions are met. In this case, they are signed and they're paid. We do save every time that the report URL is opened, is viewed, and it saves it the user and it's timestamped. We have their IP address. We have different, the browser and the operating system and different things that we can collect on a person. We do save that every time any report is viewed. All right, so let's go in here and look at an email that was sent out. And these are sample emails that can be, of course, customized. So in this particular case, I have given the option to the client and the buyer's agent to be able to edit, reschedule, or cancel themselves. You may not like that option. If you want to have more control or have it go through the office, you can just leave this out of your actual email template so that they don't have the ability to edit, reschedule, or cancel on their own. We do have different things in place, different safeguards in place to where you can keep them from scheduling or making edits a period of time before the start of the appointment, so that they don't it doesn't come within an hour and all of a sudden they make adjustments you're not aware of. Or you can leave that out altogether. So let's click on view the blue button, or click the blue button below to electronically sign your agreement. All right, in this case, we have 2 agreements that are associated with this appointment. So you have the ability to create as many agreements as necessary. They can be agreements that are your overall pre-inspection agreement, your main agreement. You can have an agreement associated with any of your services. So in this particular case, I have a standalone radon agreement that only gets attached to appointments or inspections that have the radon additional service added. Let's see, can you customize the email container? So the email container, we do it a little bit differently than ISN as far as emails, and that's just that we don't have containers and then email events and then our content and then the triggers, or I guess the events. So we do that. We actually have that all at once onto one screen, and you're able to have HTML in your email container that can have your logo or any additional information you want to show. So yes, you can customize the email container. We don't call it a container. It just is the body of the email. All right, back to the appointment agreements here. Let's go ahead and click on the main inspection agreement. You can see that it hasn't been signed yet. You can give additional descriptions if you'd like to any of these agreements. All right, so the e-signing is pretty straightforward, pretty easy to utilize in this particular case, and it's also customizable. In this case, with this agreement, I've set it up to have 7 items that the client needs to fill in. You can have as few as 1, where you scroll to the bottom and enter your signature at the bottom. In this particular case, I'm just demonstrating that you can have multiple initial fields throughout. They don't have to go in order. I don't have to click on this first one and so on. I can scroll down through and start anywhere that I'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and click on one of these. And regardless if I click on an initial field or a signature field, it will bring up this same dialog. Gives me the option or ability to go ahead and type in my name and my email. We are collecting additional information on the person doing the signing as well. And they can go ahead and put in their initials and sign. They can do this from their mouse, as I just did, or they can do this with their finger on their mobile device, their tablet. All right, so you can see that I just signed that one initial field. Now I have 6 more, but I don't actually have to enter my signature or my initials 6 more times. All I have to do is click on each one. So we do make them actually acknowledge, but we make it very easy for them to go ahead and click through once they have actually signed. So I have 2 items left. So I need to select the payment method, and I have a signature field at the bottom here. Before I do that and complete this actual document, additional services list. What we do is we give them the ability to see all the additional services that you offer. Essentially, if you've added this template variable to your agreement, we give them the ability to see this one more time, and you can actually add. So they say, actually, I did want to add termite. They click this, my pricing table refreshes, and now I have termite inspection added directly in my agreement. Automatically, it recalculates, and I'll have my new price. If they decide that they didn't want that, they can unclick any one of these that they've already clicked. Again, it refreshes, and the new price is shown. That way, it's part. If they want to make a last-minute adjustment, it's part of the addition of the actual agreement, and you don't need to get them to sign again. Of course, you can make adjustments after the agreement is signed, and we can send out a new agreement to be signed. But this kind of takes away some of that back and forth, and we've seen that a lot of people, when presented right above the actual final signature, have actually added additional services last minute. We are also working on showing the package upgrades in here as well, and giving them the ability to add the package before they actually sign, and it would adjust the price and so on. So scrolling down through here, if you have Authorize.net set up and they click on credit card, it'll go ahead and load the dialog where they can enter their information, enter their card number, and what it does is it automatically authorizes their card for 1 penny. That's essentially the minimum we can, and it basically just says, do we have a valid card? So it authorizes for 1 penny. Once it comes back successful, it's now on a profile in Authorize.net. We don't store any of the information, credit card information for a client on our system, but it is in Authorize.net at that point as a profile. And what it would do is it would stay there if they choose to still proceed and the appointment is not canceled. Then it will automatically charge their card at once the appointment takes place. We send an API to Authorize.net that says go ahead and capture funds. Let's go ahead and select another one, check, and we're down to 1 item left. We're going to go ahead and sign there, and that puts my signature in place. So right now it's condensing and putting all the signature ping images and so on into a PDF. It seals that and timestamps it and gives it a unique identifier and so on. And it can then send that out to the inspector. It can send that out to the client as well, saying that the agreement has been signed. You notice that we still have 1 agreement to be signed. Here's the one that we just worked on. We can go ahead and complete that as well real quick. I think we have 1 item to fill out in this particular test right on. And because it knows that I'm the client, I just have to click on that signature field. It automatically inserts my signature or my initials in there. Brings me back to my overall agreements table, and you can see that I no longer have any outstanding agreements that still need to be signed. What this also does is it advances the status of the appointment to a completely fully signed status, so that you don't have to worry about following up, that you do now have all the agreements filled out for the inspection in question. Is there an option for the buyer or agent to print hard copy of an agreement? So you do have the ability to print the hard copy. With every email template, actually, you have the ability of emailing the hard copy or a PDF of the agreement that has already been, essentially all the template variables are filled out, so it has all the information specific to that appointment. You have the ability of emailing that PDF as an attachment to the client as well. So if they're unable to e-sign for whatever reason, if they're unwilling to for whatever reason, you can still have the hard copy available for them automatically, and they can then print that themselves, bring it to the inspection, and then you can manually mark that as you can scan it and upload it if you'd like, or you can just manually mark it as that the agreement has been signed. right? As opposed to signing digitally, and can the agreement be marked as manually signed? Yes, you have the ability to do that. The system does not integrate with QuickBooks currently, so you can export information and then I suppose manually import. And we are working and adding kind of an enhanced reporting component where we can add queries and reports to the system very quickly and easily for you. So if you need information to be exported in a specific format, a specific number of columns or the column headers and so on in a specific order, that can all be arranged and adjusted very easily from our end. All right. Let's look at another email. So here's an example of a warranty email, and this is actually one of the Kat and Rob emails that they created for one of the clients and one of the top members. And what this does is it automatically fills in. We do have the ability to calculate the warranty fee essentially on the fly based on the square footage automatically. I know, of course, ISN does that as well, so we added that in quick order once we noticed that that needed to happen. So this is an example where that number right there, of course, would reflect the actual, based on the square footage, it would reflect the actual value or fee of the warranty. So you can change any of these up. I guess they do a nice job of with the wording. You are able to add any additional items in your logo and other things that you would like to any of the email templates. That would essentially be the container or any HTML photos that you'd like about the service. And we have the ability to send them an invoice, so you can send that via URL or button or just direct link. So this is our example of our invoice here. Pretty straightforward. It gives them the pricing information. And again, if they haven't paid, if the amount due is still greater than zero, then they have the ability to pay now via credit card through this system here. If they have past payments, maybe they paid $800, which was the initial amount, and they added an additional $220 item or additional service after the fact, it would show any previously made payments, and then the amount due would reflect the difference. So the net due would show here, and that's what they would be paying when they add their information of the credit card back to the system. Possible to have a tab or something to import credit card info for backup and not have it charge anything. So what we do automatically, if you allow or say that you accept payments at closing, we still ask for a credit card, and we have the ability to set that up. And let's say that you accept, they say they're going to mail you a check, which is one of the payment methods as well. You can set it up to where you say, I still want to collect a credit card, and it will not charge them. It does authorize again for that 1 penny, and immediately upon getting a successful transfer communication from Authorize.net, it voids that transaction, so it ends up not charging anything to them. But Authorize.net now has the profile with their credit card information, and it stays there securely. And it maybe if they end up closing and you get paid, or the check does come in the mail and no problems there, then it ends up sitting there and never being utilized. So again, we don't save any credit card information in NextInspect. That's just too high risk, but we do securely pass that information over to Authorize.net, and then they hold on to it. So you do have the ability to have that as a backup and not actually charge them anything. Can Authorize.net be set up to charge immediately from the agreement as opposed to the 1 cent charge? Yes, that will be put in place here shortly. We actually had it where it immediately charged, but then what we were finding out, or not finding out, but there's too many people that didn't want to charge them 1 or 2 weeks ahead of time. and then something happens. Either they add additional services and they need to collect the difference. They remove additional services. They need to refund. They cancel and they need to refund the whole thing. So instead of charging immediately, we did change that to charge after the appointment has taken place. So it's a non-canceled, and you have the ability to say, I want to charge 1 hour after or immediately after the appointment's taken place, or I want to delay that 24 hours. So you do have the ability to move that around, but we are going to put it back in place to where you have the ability, if you desire, to actually say essentially upon authorizing the card, maybe when the agreement's signed, go ahead and charge and collect the funds. Then it would just be on you to handle any refunds. We can probably add that as an enhancement as well. Refunding the system. It actually is on the list. It's not currently being worked on just yet, but of course you can always refund partial or full through authorized online system. All right, let's jump into some of the internal screens here. I know I'm jumping around a little bit. I'm also throwing a lot at you. The system does a lot. We have really the main features that you would want and need. I'm sure there's probably a few out there, and we're probably working on them right now as well, that are in the works also. But certainly the main components and a lot more are in place. So I do want to touch on a lot of that and try to answer as many questions as you guys have. So I think this is working pretty well. So keep the questions coming, and I'll try to answer them back and forth. All right. So from the internal screens, we have it set up to where if you just have an inspector's permission level or role, then you can only see your appointments. So in this particular case, I'm set up as an admin, so I'm able to see all these inspectors. But if John Peterson in this particular case just has the inspector role, he would not see Nate and Steve on this list. He would just see his own and be able to see only his schedule. He also wouldn't be able to see these the whole admin menu, all the admin features as far as the aggregated calendar, table, map, payroll calculations and reports, and so on that we see under admin. So let's jump into Nate's schedule. So upon setting up, I know a lot of you guys that I'm seeing on here have already set up your system, so you know that one of the first steps at least is to show availability. This is after setting up pricing model and a couple of their items, but certainly to show your availability. We have it set up to where you can set up or create recurring time slots, and that just cuts down on you having to actually say, okay, Monday the 8th, I'm available at 1:30, or let's go down to the future here. The 29th, I'm available at 8:30 and 1:30, and then on the Tuesday the 30th, 8:30 and 1:30 again, and so on. You don't have to do that for every single day. Instead, you create one time slot, one recurring time slot, and say my 8:30 is available Monday through Friday, starting on a particular day and ending maybe never. And what that does is if you don't give it an ending date, it's going on into the future, into perpetuity, without having to change anything with your availability. You do have the ability to end these time slots at any time, and it would take them off the list. So if I deleted that 8:30 without affecting any previously scheduled appointment. So if I delete this 8:30 right here, it's not going to affect anything that I've scheduled prior, but it just means that I'll no longer be able to book any 8:30 time slots. Now I can create an 8:30 time slot again, no problem. It's not going to affect anything if I have previously deleted one. So we did see where I had the ability to change that 8:30 time slot anywhere between 8 and 10 a.m. If I hover over here, we can see that start time can be adjusted any time between 8 and 10 a.m. And that's simply by adjusting it on the setup screen. So this is when I'm editing or adding a series, and I'm allowing the client to adjust their start time. So you're able to adjust the start time. You being the admin or the inspector or the call center reps are able to adjust start times at any time, even if this is set to no. But what this allows, if you turn it to yes, is it allows the client or agent from an external, not logged in standpoint to be able to change that start time to any time that you deem that's available. So if this is normally an 8:30 start time, I can go ahead and say I'm going to allow you to start as early as 7 a.m. or as late, I think I have down here to 4 hours, or as late as 12:30 p.m. And then of course it's still an 8:30 time slot, but if they don't change it at all, it's an 8:30, but they have the ability to adjust it. And you can go ahead and do that if you'd like. Down here, let me click back on here. You also have the ability to show appointment block criteria by clicking here, and you have the ability to limit what can be scheduled during a particular day or time during this time slot. And you can say we only perform specific inspection types or property types or specific additional services during this particular time slot series. And let me show you an example of that. So on Tuesdays at 1:30, I've limited to only foundation inspections and framing inspections. You could, if you wanted to set up and say my afternoon on every Wednesday is going to be just radon. So I'm going to create a 12 p.m., a 1 p.m., a 2 p.m., a 3 p.m., and so on. You create a bunch of small 1-hour time slots. You can ensure that you're not going to get double booked with home inspections in that 12 and 1 and 2 p.m. spots by limiting the time slot series to specific services, inspection types, or property types. All right, we can, looking at this calendar here, and again, this is just one calendar for one inspector that we're looking at currently. We'll look at the aggregated one here momentarily. And this is just for Nate, and we can quickly see the status of the job. So this particular appointment has been signed. These appointments are scheduled. This appointment's paid, the green on green. And we can also see the additional services that have been added to the appointment. So if we scroll over, you're able to customize these icons and make them, some of them can match pretty well with what the additional service is. We are able to add additional icons as well. We try to, what did I think, the bomb icon for radon. So you're able to customize that, just something that's going to catch your eye, and so you can quickly see what has been scheduled with this time slot. The plus indicates the fact that I've added a secondary inspector as well onto this particular appointment. And then from here, I can either I can see some information about who it's for, just without actually getting into the whole appointment profile. When it is, who it's assigned to, if the inspector was specifically requested. I can cancel it from here or open in Google Maps, or I can actually edit, send emails, or jump into the actual appointment profile by viewing the appointment from here. So this gives me a quick information, mainly when I'm booked and when I'm not would be the first bit of information. And then if you click on any of these, it'll give you a little bit more information. And then if you need to look into it further, you would actually view the appointment to go into the appointment profile. If I have a doctor's appointment, I have something going on in an afternoon, I'm able to easily mark a particular time slot as closed. And to the external screen, it shows that I'm booked. So they don't know that I'm actually not inspecting. It just shows that I'm booked there, but this is actually closed. And likewise, I can mark time slots as being on hold as well. Particular or specific time slots is on hold. And I would ask for a little bit of a comment. So this might be, hold for Trey with Keller Williams. And again, any on hold, just like a closed, shows up as a book because that time slot is no longer available. We don't want to hold for Trey with Keller Williams and then have that be booked out from under him. So it is, you wouldn't want to leave items on hold for too long because essentially if they never call back or if you don't follow up with them, they are missed opportunities or could be missed opportunities because they are showing as a booked time slot. I see that dentist appointment on the 15th, does that not let someone book in that time? So what this is, what the purple one is, on the 15th is an event. So currently an event can overlap a time slot series, and it does not affect it at all. So right now, if I were to create an event, say at 8:30 on the 5th, let's go ahead and do that here. Let's see here. It picks up current time. Let's go ahead and move that back down to 8:30. On the 24th. All right, so 8:30 doctor's appointment on the 24th. Oh, I didn't change the end time on that one. I can adjust that. And you do not have to actually give it any time. I can say this starts at 8:30 and ends at 8:30 a.m. Or you can block off and say this is probably going to take 2 hours, or you can block off the entire week for vacation if you'd like. And what that does is currently it just shows that you have an event to keep up with. So these are personal things. They do not show on your external calendar. It would be more for keeping track, especially if you have multiple folks in the office. You can keep track of admin or office personnel as well, any events, without actually having appointment time slot calendars associated with them. All right, so that's the personal calendar. You have the ability to do a little bit of filter or show this in a week view versus a month view, and tab on through. If you'd like, it loads a little bit quicker in the week view versus the month because it has less to load, but still shows there. We are going to working on a daily view as well, which would show these time slots or these booked time slots. We do have durations associated, calculated durations associated with these time slots. However, they just show the start time of 8 a.m. With that particular appointment, if it's a 4,000 square foot home and they have a radon and they have a crawl space and they have different attributes, we can actually calculate the duration. These are durations that you have entered based on square footage and additional attributes, additional services of the appointment. And if we show this on a daily view, we'd have it visually, it would show, let's say this calculated, it comes out to be 4 hours and 20 minutes. It would then show that visually stretching down for the equivalent of 4 hours and 20 minutes as a time slot block. Can we sync with Google? We had Google integration, Google Calendar integration in place actually a couple months ago. And then all of a sudden it stopped syncing. Google had changed some things with their APIs. It's on the list for us to revisit and get that back going. I think actually the guys started down that road and I pulled them off to get a couple things in place for Vegas done. But yes, we'll have Google integration, Google Calendar integration fixed essentially and back syncing here shortly. Let's see, are the payment triggers for whom is going to pay the inspection, buyer or buyer's agent, is that available? So you can say, I believe you can say who you're expecting the payments from, but as far as it triggering the invoice to be sent to one or the other based on that criteria, I don't think that's in place. So we could, you could always send them a manually sent invoice email if that was, if it's typically the buyer, but this particular time we're going to send it to the buyer's agent. Triggering those off of, we can probably add that as additional email trigger criteria. We've got several things, whether or not it's been paid, if it has been signed, and so on. So I think triggering that off of that additional information probably would not be too bad. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down, and I'll discuss it with the guys with the development team. Well, you need to upload the report to Next. Yes, currently you can upload the report to Next manually. I uploaded that sample document in there, so literally it's just picking the file off of your desktop or in a specific folder of your computer. But that is a manual process until we have integration with the report writer, with a specific report writer. Some report writers want to not actually transfer the PDF. They want to hold on to the PDF and maybe transfer a hyperlink in that particular case. So if that was the case, then you could always download it and upload it manually as well, which you can currently do. There's just the payment that closed. All right, we're not going to really get into the company info. That's just some setup information. Your parties, that's your agents essentially. Could be closing coordinators as well. We do have, of course, we're associating buyers and sellers, agents, and closing coordinators with each appointment, so that they are associated with. So we can, as we build out their profile, to make it similar, I suppose, with a real estate agent's dashboard or something similar, then we of course can display the appointments that they're associated with and any reports and so on. We would have to give them a login at that point, so we're trying to keep it more streamlined. But if that's heavily requested, then we can certainly go in that direction with an enhancement. Discount codes. So if you want to offer a particular discount code, certain time of the year, you can have them automatically start and end or expire. The amounts can be a flat or a percentage. Here's a couple examples here of how you, and then you can choose to advertise those or not. Even if you don't add the discount code appointment field to the booking screen, you can still add these discounts as an admin, either from the review screen or from the appointment profile. And it's always best if you're gonna offer discounts or have discounts, I would say go ahead and put them in as a discount into the system, as opposed to just adding a line item that says $25 discount, because you can't run metrics off of how many times you've utilized a particular discount code if it's not actually a discount code. It's just a flat line item and by that I mean right here. So if you just add a pricing line item, I could type in discount here and say -25, but then I can't run metrics off of that versus actually clicking discount and then selecting, say, the hero discount and saving that, or my fall 2018 discount and saving that. All right, let's jump over to the pricing model screen. And here's just a quick profile pictures and so on about the inspector. You do have the ability to limit the inspector's travel to a certain radius from their base, and their base can be the address of the company, or their base can be a separate address, say their home, if you have your inspectors spread out a little bit more. So I could say we're just going to travel 40 miles, a 40-mile radius from the company address. I also have the ability to limit states. If you're on a border state and you don't want to go over, that's fine. You can limit to certain postal codes as well. You can also, once we get over to the pricing model, you have the ability to charge more based on state or postal code if you'd like. So do we back up reports to Dropbox like ISN? We currently don't have a Dropbox integration to where they can go there. They are backed up. If that's the first part of the question, we do utilize Amazon Web Services, so they are pretty big. We utilize S3 storage for backups of all the data, including reports. Time into Dropbox, I think that's definitely doable and can be placed in the list. All right, so this is the pricing model for Nate. You do have the ability to set up separate pricing per inspector if you'd like, or we can link the pricing model of all your inspectors to essentially one model, one master model. So if you change the pricing for any of the guys, it changes for all the guys. So, but it is defaulted that everyone has a separate pricing model to set up. So I would suggest if you do want them all to be the same, go ahead and set it up on, say, yourself or your main inspector, and then before you go through and do it for every single one. I can go in the database and make a couple adjustments and have all of your guys wired up, saving you a lot of time. So if you have any questions like that, and feel free to reach out to Chris and myself, and some of these things we can take care of on our end quicker if they're mass changes. Especially the more guys you have, the more more setup time there is, but it's still pretty straightforward. All right, so property type pricing. Looking down through here, you can set it up based on square footage with a percentage and a plus minus, base plus, and I've set up a couple examples here, and a flat fee. So mobile home, it doesn't matter square footage or anything, it's going to be a flat fee of this in this particular case. Of course, these are all customizable. Base plus just means that we're going to start with an amount, and then we're going to add a certain amount per square footage that's going to be calculated based on what's entered for the appointment. And if the square footage rate means we're going to go off of the square footage range table that you set up, fully customizable. It starts off with a certain breakdown of ranges, but of course you're able to delete those or edit those, add additional ones, and so on. Here you can also then add a percentage factor, which just means if it's 100%, that's like multiplying by 1. So it is what the square footage range dictates. So if a home is 1,500 square feet, in this particular case, it's going to be 330. If you then throw a factor of, say, 105%, it's going to multiply it by 1.05 and have a higher calculated rate. You also have the ability to add or subtract an additional amount. So some people will, the condominium example right here. So the condos are priced the same way as, say, a single family detached, except for I want to take off $50. So it's you could come in there and say if you want to take off 5%, you would mark that down as 95% factor, or you can take off a flat rate. So I'm hoping I'm not getting too in the weeds with this, but it is pretty customizable. So there's really been very few pricing sheets that we haven't been able to recreate, not just with this property type, but then getting down to the actual other attributes as well. Of setting up the pricing model as a whole. To be determined, we talked about that. So if I want to set up all of my commercial inspections as to be determined, this is what we're going to go off of for calculating, but I don't want to actually display that number until I've had put my eyes on it and actually know what that building's like, what makes up that 15,000 square feet. Are there many offices, many bathrooms, many floors, and so on. So there's so many different factors that might take into consideration how you might want to price that. So you can always flip any of these to be determined just by clicking on them. Same thing with offered. You have the ability to click on them and mark them as offered or not, or you can hit edit and flip them to offered or not, to be determined or not, and change the calculation method up here. Inspection types. You have the ability to add inspection types to the system. We start off with these as defaults, but certainly you can add additional ones. I think pre-drywall inspections and different draw inspections and so on would fall under the inspection type category. Would want to just put it out there that the way that and what ISN calls inspection types, we do it a little bit differently in how we keep our additional services separate. So you do not need to create an inspection type for a home inspection, and then another inspection type for home inspection plus radon, and another one for home inspection plus radon plus termite, and another one for home inspection just termite, and every possible matrix combination of all the additional services and inspection types that you offer. Instead, you would just create your inspection types, which would be what the actual property inspection entails, and then you add or have the ability to add a la carte, essentially, the additional services. So it cuts down on the number of inspection types and what they have to sift through and how they want to order. And we saw that back on the booking screen where you have a separate section for additional services. So the webinar is being recorded. It's hopefully. So sometimes we have issues with that, but this should be recording right now that we can post any additional time that we have, or for folks that are not able to join us. So yes, that should be posted at some point as well. I have to get with Chris and Mike on where that goes and where we can make that available. All right, moving down through additional pricing attributes. So we do have the ability to charge an evening premium. I think it's after, let's see, 5 p.m. That might be customizable, or at least from the database side. We also have a weekend premium that we can choose to add for Saturday and Sunday. Then that's automatic, so you don't have to tell the call center, if you schedule me on Saturday at $45, you can set it up to where if the system, if an appointment is booked on Saturday, it automatically knows to add $45. It's just one less thing that could possibly slip through. And also with all these, you see this show question mark. That's where you have the ability to determine if you actually want to show any of these pricing attributes as a separate line item, or if you want to combine it in the cost of the home inspection. There's something to be said about not showing it and combining it, in that it doesn't, so we're not appearing to nickel and dime. Of course, we know that if you're going to go in a crawl space, it's going to take you longer. You got to suit up a lot of times, or you might have to break out the crawl bot and so on. So charging extra certainly makes sense. You may not want to show that you're charging extra. If you're saying you're going to charge extra due to the crawl bot, then maybe you do want to, in that particular case, show it. But you have the ability to show or combine or itemize or combine any of these pricing attributes in the system. Let's see here, minimum inspection fee. So if you do offer discounts and you have, let's say, a new construction discounts, which and you $50 off for a condo and so on, and it drops your price below a certain amount, it will then not allow you to drop down below that certain amount if you've added a price here, a value here, and mark that as active. So again, these active columns in all these basically just say whether or not you're going to take that in consideration. So any of these that are shown as no, even if I have a price set up, in this particular case, negative $25 for a slab, it's not going to take off $25 and give them a discount if it's active, it's set to no. So even if there's a value there. You can also add durations based on types and other attributes. So certainly your square footage warrants creating some durations that you can then possibly work off of, at least given normal scenario and normal situation. Let's say if I have to get in a crawl space and suit up, I'm adding 15 additional minutes in this particular case. And again, that's customizable from here. You can change and add quite a bit of time, or no time at all. All right, property age, you have the ability to charge more or give a discount based on the age. We'll go through that, state and postal codes. So if I add in states, I can charge more if I live on the border. And if I have to go into Texas, I'm going to charge an extra $40. You can go ahead and do that as well. And again, you can choose to combine or itemize that. Calc over largest square footage fee, explain how that works. What that means is instead of creating square footage ranges that go up to just the monster houses that you see once, maybe once a year, maybe not even, up in the 12,000 range, 14,000 range, whatever. This allows you to just create your normal square foot price ranges down here, and if it's over your largest square footage range, given your table, then it's going to calculate at a certain price per square foot. So in this particular case, if we hover over, it sees that my largest range in this case is 6,000. So we see that, and then we add 123 just for the example. We just picked a random number, and it multiplies that by 12 cents. So it says in this particular case, given 12 cents, at 6,123 square feet, it would be a price of $734.76 for calc over largest square foot range. And you can see that's pretty much in line. I think the 12 cents is usually pretty much in line with a lot of the square foot ranges, to where that kind of makes sense that we're at 650 at the 6,000 square foot range. So if we jump up, then it goes a little bit higher. So it's maybe 11.5 might put you in line, but again, it kind of is determined by if you're linear, if you want to jump up or give a little bit discount on the larger ones, or what have you. If you have, and that's only when you're utilizing just the square footage price range. If you have it set up to be base plus, then it's always going to calculate regardless of the size. So if it's set up and they selected shopping center retail property, and it's set up as base plus, it's going to be 280 plus 6.5 cents per square foot, regardless if it's 2,000 square feet or 20,000 square feet. You rename the pricing titles and also the inspection types. So you have the ability to add inspection types to the system here that you can rename, or can name whatever you want. So I can type them in here, select how I want to calculate through here, make it active or offered. So you do have the ability to do that. You do not have the ability currently to, when you edit one of these, you do not have the ability to edit the name. When we added the ability to add inspection types, we kept it a little bit more simplistic because these are essentially off of default values. Not to get in the weeds again on database or anything, but these are essentially defaults, and the addition of inspection types would be custom to your specific account. So haven't given you the ability to adjust these, but the alternative would literally be to mark one of the defaults as not active, and then recreate whatever you want it to be called down here as a custom type. And you could essentially make all of these not active, and then recreate very similar inspection types with completely different names. So there's a workaround, essentially, even though we haven't allowed you to edit the default names. You have the ability to hide them based on whether or not they're offered or not. So if I just don't do pre-purchase home inspections, which wasn't a great example to pick, I'm sure, but for whatever reason I don't do that, it's now not offered, and it does not show on the booking screen. So it cannot be selected. The pricing set up in any of this doesn't matter at all, because it's not available to be fixed. We set up an appointment with you to screen share and get everything set up. Yes, I believe, and that's what Chris Higginbotham has been doing with several folks recently, is actually getting in and screen sharing or getting into your system through the call center integration. Even if you're not utilizing the call center, Nathan has been nice enough to offer Chris's time, and Chris has been great with getting folks set up and on board, getting stuff transferred over. Again, maybe you choose to use the call center in the future, maybe not, but regardless, he has been willing and able to offer some assistance in getting your system set up. All right, we talked about foundation types, property age, travel distance. Again, if you want to charge over a certain amount of distance from your base, and your base could be your company address, could be your home, could be a custom home address of the inspector, whatever your base is set up to be in the system, you can then choose to show or charge additional amounts off of that. And then again, you can itemize it or combine it, show it or not show it. Postal codes, we talked about that. I think, I believe that we had several folks say, well, particular postal codes might be very difficult to get to. I might have to literally it's only 12 miles down the road, but I literally have to take a ferry over to the island because I live on the coast in these 1 or 2 postal codes. So I want to account for that time. So that's where you don't have to, it may not take the travel distance into consideration because it may be close by, but it's just difficult to get to, or for whatever reason you want to charge more based on certain areas. And you're able to enter, doing a quick Google search, show me all the postal codes in Raleigh, or all the ones in Apex or surrounding areas. I can then copy and paste that with a comma in between each one, essentially, and put large amounts of postal codes in here to be taken into consideration as to whether or not I want to charge extra or give a discount, I suppose, based on certain codes. All right, Chris is giving out his personal cell phone number and his email for anyone that is in need of help. So let's see. Let me paste that real quick here. Thanks, Chris. I'm sure we can post that as well to somewhere where you don't have to actually copy it down right now if you don't have the ability to. All right, so that's the pricing model. Flew through it, but there's a lot of things that you can do in actually tweaking the pricing model to come up with the calculations necessary to meet your pricing needs. Some people literally just go off of square footage ranges, and that's really all the information they need or care about, and that's all they had to set up, and that's completely fine. But we do have the ability to customize it to a much deeper level if you do want to add bits and pieces based on some of the attributes and the nuances of the appointment itself. And again, combining it, I think, is the way to go in most cases, just so it may not appear like you are nickel and diming. Additional services. It's basically, we do start off with a list of 16 or 18 or so different basic additional services. They're all set to not offered. So it's not, once you sign up, all of a sudden, if you post this, it's going to, you're going to get booked for additional services that you don't offer. So they're in here, and they're set to not offered. So if you do want to utilize some of the canned ones that we have, or edit any of the canned ones, you're certainly able to do that, or you can add additional services yourself. So if I wanted to turn on this energy survey here as well, I can edit that, making the adjustments to the name, the description, of course, say that it's offered, adjust the price if necessary, and then whether or not it's standalone, available to be standalone. So in some cases, you're saying it's not worth, or I'm not going to allow a service to be scheduled on its own, so it's not available as a standalone. That would keep that as no. If I did say I can go ahead and do an energy survey on its own, but it's going to charge, I'm going to charge $175 for my time. Go ahead and pick a somewhat appropriate indicator icon from the list, and again, we can add additional ones as those libraries become available. If you need to add tax, you do have the ability to add tax percentages on a per additional service basis. You can also add tax to the overall appointment or the overall inspection as well, and they do not have to be a matching tax. In some cases, if you're going to pass through, maybe you don't charge tax on some things and you do on others. So it is customizable from that standpoint. And again, we can go ahead and select the duration for this energy survey that we're going to do and save it. All right. All right, that's good, Jimmy. He just tried it on his phone. It looks good from there. So it does shift things around. It's called responsive, and it does show different text fields, drop downs, and so on in a different configuration, whether or not you're viewing it on a large screen desktop or if you're viewing it on your small screen. And some things are, tables are sometimes difficult to show on a small screen in a readable manner. So if you do have a table and you're trying to view your admin screens from your phone, which you're able to, it's just a little more difficult. It may only show you a portion of the table. But what that means is now you have a horizontal scroll bar in the mix. So I'm not sure if I can duplicate this just to show you. So here's an example right here. Once it's drugged down to about the size of a phone, I'd say, so it still is readable. And then you have a horizontal scroll bar to show you the rest of the table. Instead of just completely squishing all these columns to an unreadable level, it just allows you to pan and scroll. So if you ever only see a portion of the table on your phone, pan left and right, and you should be able to see the rest of it. All right, quickly, the integration website deployment. We set up 3 options essentially that are automatically built. First one, and this is on a per inspector basis if you'd like, or you also can do it on the company basis. So we can look at that here momentarily. The scheduling URL, if you want to send a blast email out to your list of agents and say we've got this great new scheduling software, you're going to love it. It's going to show you my availability immediately that you can then book that anytime, day or night. You can give them this link, and that goes directly to your calendar. You can also embed an HTML button that you have the ability to change wording in here. And again, if you have a webmaster or somebody who's good with your site, then they can make these adjustments and they don't really need this HTML code. But we went ahead and put together a simplistic button that you can make minor adjustments to the color and to the wording and so on. But the main thing is, again, that we're gonna link again to your unique URL. And then the third option would be to copy and paste to embed this calendar. And that would be what we showed at the very beginning of the screen, at the very beginning of this webinar. Actually, with those 6 lines of code right here, you're able to embed your calendar on your website, any page on your website, and it's real time. So when your website loads, when the page is refreshed, it automatically shows your availability or when you're booked, based on immediately what you have available. You do have, I can give you additional code. It's about 6 lines of code if you want to embed the aggregated company calendar. So if you have more than 2 guys and you don't want to show a different calendar per guy, you're able to embed a calendar that shows the availability for the whole team, of everyone on the team. And again, I can give you that. Back to the first screens here. This would be an example URL. Instead of giving a specific URL of your of an inspector, you can give the overall URL, select an inspector with your unique URL. So this particular company alias is demo2, and they can go here, or you can give them the hyperlink or the URL for the company calendar view. In this view, it'll show all the availability for every day in the future. So, and then they can click on an available day and pick their particular inspector or the time slot that they need. So again, the URLs would be for the overall company would be the one that's shown at the top here, or this other one. And we need to put that on the deploy integration screen, the website deployment screen. But that can be sent out separately as well with the aggregated company calendar that can be embedded. Can we show the time slots without the inspector's name? We were working on that, Randy. That was some feedback, I believe, from Vegas. We are working on not showing back on this particular screen. So we see that we have 4 spots available. In this particular case, I may not want them to. Well, I'm not on this list because I have a book time slots for myself, but maybe I don't want them to necessarily always gravitate and pick John. Or in this case, you may not always want them to pick you over one of the guys that you just brought on board that's still going to do a great job for them. So yes, we are working on just showing time availability, but without the inspector's name associated with this button, as well as let's say after you pick John, then of course we wouldn't show them up here either. And then they would just work their way through, give the information on the actual appointment to be booked, and it'd still be associated with John, but we just wouldn't show it. And then if it needs to be moved over, you'd be able to swap inspectors or reschedule to a different inspector very easily. So without actually showing, it still needs to be associated because of the availability and not double booking. But yes, we can hide names, or we'll be able to hide names here shortly. All right, so we talked about files and uploading. I think we have not looked at the when these criteria have not been met, the agreements must be signed and the appointment must be paid. When those are not, when they're set as being required, but they haven't been met. So let me pull up a reports email here. So again, this is a default or email template that they can be adjusted to whatever you like. Please click the button below to view your report. Let's see here. All right, your reports can be viewed once the conditions are met. So here's on this particular appointment for Sarah Holt, the appointment must be paid. So let me see. Find that appointment. That way I can show you what it looks like to toggle if it's been paid or if all agreements have been signed. All right, so the agreements have been signed in this particular case. That was the one we went through earlier, and that's why it did not, even though it was a criteria, that's why it did not actually show me that it needed to be signed. Had they not been signed, we would have an additional criteria or condition shown under here that says all agreements must be signed, and you would have a button underneath there that says click to sign agreements. We try to make it easy to where they come here, they want to view or download the reports that have been uploaded to the system, but they're unavailable or they're unable to do so until the criteria is met. So they can click on Pay by Credit Card, and they can go ahead and put their information in, and it goes through and authorizes it and then captures it and so on through the system, just like we do at time of signing the agreement. So if I remove that stipulation of that the agreement must be paid just by clicking off that and refreshing the screen. All right, so it no longer has the fact that that I can't view these, and now my buttons are no longer disabled. So here's my sample home inspection report. It brings it up here. It's going to show me that, and it shows that it's been viewed one time. So likewise, if I click these, again, the page refreshes and they're viewed a second time. Now we're not showing all the metrics, all the data that we're collecting behind the user of who's viewing it, but we do save all that, and it can be presented to you if necessary. If you need to say that that you viewed this, 6 times, and here's the dates when you viewed it, and now you're just now bringing up a problem, we have the ability to present that information to you of when and who viewed that report. And then we can see this one's still not viewed. I believe there's a delay in just in case they had the report up and then they hit refresh here. I think we delay at least several seconds or possibly a minute or so without it actually saying that it's a separate view. And that's just, well, there you go. It's now been viewed twice. So we didn't want to delay it but so much, but I think it's probably in there and says every 10 or 30 seconds. So every time this page is loaded, we are capturing who viewed it and when they viewed it. All right. That's viewing files that have been uploaded. Again, manually uploading for now until we get your particular report writer on board with the API of then transferring it back in if they even allow that, but you can always download the PDF or whatever file type and then go ahead and click home inspection report or what have you. Change the report type to whatever it is. Add a description if you'd like, and save. Once it's in the system here, we now have the ability to send an email or send the report out. So, and we can pick from any of these templates. They don't even have to be a report sending template. You can resend from any template in the system. But let's go ahead and just pick a send reports. Here's the template. We go down and the header information, who we're going to send it to, by default, by virtue of the email template being set up, is automatically filled in. You can always say, well, in this particular case, I do want to send this to the buyer's agent and the inspector. But again, it's going to bring up whatever you set up your email template to be originally, at least to start with, including any of the body of the content of this report. So in this case, I'm giving him I'm giving the client the view download inspection reports button, which is to the URL, and I'm not actually giving them any reports. That way I have control over can they view it or not based on has it been signed or paid for or not. But if you do need to send them, you do have the ability to go ahead and attach any of the attachments, any of the files that are associated with this appointment. You do have the ability to attach that to the email that gets sent out. Once they have that PDF, of course, we can't track whether or not they've opened or what they've done with that, and so on. So it's there if you need to send it. Otherwise, it might be safer in most cases to send them the link. If you want to send them just one particular report, and you can copy the URL for that report and then paste it into the system and send them that as well. I'm working on a couple mock-ups with how we can pick and choose. It'd probably be an additional checkbox based on whether or not we want to include a button that says view these reports, and you can only view 1 or 2 reports that have been entered versus view all of the available reports. But anyway, we're constantly enhancing the system and adding additional things to it to make it a little bit more user friendly and a little bit more customizable for you, the admin, the inspector, the account owner. All right, we can always preview these as well. You do have the ability to mark the status as report sent from here. If you're just sending off one report, let's say you're getting them in and you're sending them out as they come in. So the recall check came in, you're going to send that out, and you're ready with your home inspection report. You're going to send that out. You're waiting for the water analysis to come back, or the radon. You're waiting for that 48 hours plus, and so on. So you may not want to actually mark the appointment status as report sent maybe until, I don't know, the main report is sent, or possibly all the reports are sent. So you do have the ability to not check that when you're sending these emails, but that is what that checkbox does. All right. Recording payments. If you have it set up through authorize.net, it's going to automatically record payments both in this panel as well as in the activity log once it actually charges and captures funds. So if you don't have it set up and you're going to manually enter it, or if you utilize a Square card reader, you still have the ability to mark it in as as a particular method, or I received a check at the inspection. For the in this case, the full amount would be 1,020. You can see amount due is now down to 0 if you paid in full. You do have the ability to enter partial payments if that if they have maybe the agent put $100 towards it, and then the client's going to pay the balance. So you do have the ability to put partials in the system as well. And you can see that who entered it and what they entered in the amount. Anytime a pricing is changed to the system as well, we of course save that and log it. So if this separate outbuilding was changed, we're going to go ahead and give them a discount of $20 down to $25. We can see if the pricing was changed, who it was changed by, and what any adjustments that were made. If you edited any of the details of the actual appointment, and we're talking about any of the details, so how you're going to get in, you're going to access the property, if it's if the utilities are on, maybe the address was entered incorrectly, or the person's name was, client's name was entered incorrectly or misspelled. Any of those, we do keep a record of all of that was edited, and we show that in the activity log, exactly what has been edited. So if you're wondering, well, I got an email saying the appointment was edited and automatically triggered, but what actually changed, you can go here and click on the view details of that and actually see the edits. Let's see. Payroll calculations. That's a new feature that just got put in place very recently. You do have the ability to calculate payroll. For multi-inspector companies out there, you have the ability to calculate payroll differently on a per inspector basis. You can set up deductions, essentially company fees, before or after, and after, if you want to set up both. You can set it up as we're paying on the inspection and the services separately, or on the appointment as a total, or based on percentages or fixed amounts. So it's pretty customizable. Currently, the only bonus criteria we have set up to where if they were specifically requested, then you can go ahead and give them, whatever amount extra that you want in there. And we have a little example calculation. This is just as you make adjustments up here. I'm going to take 10% for the company in this particular case. In this example, if it's a $400 inspection fee, 10% is $40. That leaves $360, of which I'm going to give the inspector 60% in this case of that remaining $360. There's $216. And if they happen to be specifically requested, there's an extra $25 back to them. So they're getting $241 out of the $400. And that's in this example calculation. And that's just on the inspection. You can set up to pay or not pay them based on additional services as well. So maybe they don't touch the termite inspection, that gets subbed out, therefore I'm going to give them 0. Of a radon test, they need to set it and maybe come back and pick it up, so I'm going to give them $50 of the $125 collected with that inspection. So again, pretty customizable. I'm sure there's some ways that folks pay their employees that we don't have it set up to do. But we can always make additional tweaks, and as we've done with the pricing model, to get that on a broader scale. But this, from the folks that I've talked to so far, it covers their needs quite well. And again, that can be done on a per inspector basis. You can then go over to your payroll report and then select the date range. In this particular case, I've selected the 1st to 21st. You can select particular inspectors or select all, and it then gives you a breakdown of how many appointments a particular inspector has done, what their appointment fees totaled, what we've calculated their fees to be, their amount to be, and then this is on a per appointment basis as well, how much they would actually be paid. So in this particular case, based on all the criteria set up and and the additional services fees that are in place on this 655, we're going to give 284. Again, this is just demo data. That shows you whether or not you've been paid on it, if the card has processed or not. We've got no status, but this is a pay at closing. So the company has not yet been paid on it. Maybe you, most likely you're still going to pay your inspectors even on the at closing, but anyway, that gives you additional information. about the jobs. You can always jump into the appointment profile from any of these if you want to look up the details a little bit further. Didn't talk a whole lot about package upgrades, but you did see it on the booking screen at the beginning. Here's where you get to it in the admin screen as well. You have the ability to add additional lines and change the name of the packages, package pricing, and so on. You can bold or remove specific lines. So you can add an additional line here to this, or we can go ahead and remove that. And you have the ability to associate additional services with packages when necessary as well. And that's mainly in case they have already selected an additional service, kind of a la carte, and then all of a sudden you say, well, actually, it makes sense for an extra $45, I can get whatever is offered in this additional package, which might also include, in this particular case, offered additional services. Here's an example where radon is offered. It is an additional service. Mold evaluation is offered as well, but it's not actually an additional service anyway. We're just going to do that, or maybe look even further based on this package being selected. We are adding, it's very close. I was testing it earlier today. We are adding additional template variable for package upgrade, and you would be able to add that both to your agreement so that you can add packages, or the client upon signing would be able to add a package to their order, as well as place in an HTML format and CSS and so on into the actual emails that get sent out. Here's the packages, and here's the package that you currently have selected, and they can upgrade it right from their email. So that's very close. It's just some minor tweaks on how that gets presented and works, but essentially we're trying to make it very easy for them to add these packages to their appointment without having to jump through many hoops or necessarily call into the office. But certainly you can always direct them to do that if you'd like. Well, we do have the ability to map. I'm going to add a smaller map to the dashboard of saying, show me my inspections today for all of my guys, or my inspections this week for all of my guys, and so on. But you have the ability to see some map and where your inspections are. Click on any one of these pins, and I believe the blue is in the past, the green is future, and if we had any canceled, we can turn that on and see where they might be. Doesn't look like I have any in this particular case. And then I can jump into the appointment profile. That just gives you a quick visual of where and maybe how far you've been traveling with the system. Company calendar is an aggregated calendar for just for the admin and office personnel and the call center. So they can see essentially all the appointments that have been set up. Here's an example of events as well show up on the aggregated company calendar, even though they don't necessarily have to do with appointments or with inspections. You can show up. I can add in when your guys are going on vacation, or when they're out of town, or for whatever reason are taking off. Of course, when in this particular case, when Steve Neal went on vacation, I needed to mark his availability as closed for those particular days, just so he wasn't able to be scheduled. From here, it does gives you that same look as the external, but of course with all of your actual appointments as well. So on the external screens, they just see how many are available. But on the internal screens, I see who's scheduled and maybe who's closed or on hold. I can always open this back up, and if Tommy never called back in, or he did call back in and he says it's not, he doesn't need it, but he'll be calling back later on, possibly next week. We're going to go ahead and open that time slot back up, and it's going to take that on hold off, and now my availability went from 4 to 5. So now I can schedule my guy for that time slot again. Again, I can close on hold and adjust time all from here, or I can jump right into actually scheduling that appointment. All right. Dashboard shows widgets. We do have several more widgets that have been placed on the list. A lot of feedback from actually some of the guys in Vegas of some additional widgets that would be nice to see. So as you have additional ideas for widgets or reports, let me know. Reach out. You can email me directly at nate@setinspect.com or support@setinspect.com. And we can get those on the list to be added, dashboard widgets and reports. A couple buttons up here in the top to quickly talk about. Create an order. That's just a quick, every screen you'd have the ability to start an order. And what this does is it essentially shows your number of available time slots, who's available for any particular day. So here's the 24th. If I switch this over to the 26th, I now have an updated availability. If I switch it over to Saturday, it'll then show 1, which correlates to the 1 available shown on the 27th down here on this on the company calendar. But I can see this dialog from any screen in the system. So if you don't need to see it overall, you just want to see who's available, then you can go ahead and start creating an order from there. Quick quote: what this does is it pulls up. And you can change it because we can change the pricing per inspector. You have the ability to change the inspector up here if you have somebody in particular in mind. If everyone's priced the same, essentially, then and it doesn't really matter who you select here. Just go ahead and put in a postal code as well. And then right here, you can go ahead and make adjustments. So if you choose to give out quotes over the phone without a whole lot of detail. I know the call center doesn't do this because they want to get the potential client's name and address, and that's also going to allow you to give a better quote. But if you choose to give them a quote over the phone based on just some pieces of criteria, you can run through here and say, okay, it's new construction, it's a crawl space. You can see each time I do this, my requested service pricing updates. So let's say it's a pretty old house. And the square footage is actually, this is all based on information they're giving me over the phone. I'm now able to work up a pretty good quote based on my pricing model, additional attributes and criteria that I've set up in the system. And then maybe it's a condo. So I can give them a price of, say, $400, and then I'd probably put some caveats of this is based on, filling out the booking screen in its entirety and making sure that the information did not deviate from what's given. So you also have the ability to say, well, let's go ahead and add on a radon and a termite right here. And again, it adds it in this quick quote. If the person says, hey, 625, that sounds good, let's go ahead and get this booked, you can then click start order. It's going to pull up my calendar, because I still need to pick who I'm going to give this to. Even though I started to quote it off of Nate, I still need to pick somebody in here. And let's say I'm going to pick a day in the future where I can still get Nate and save. So it throws me in here. It's not actually an appointment yet, but the information that I started to type in, new construction, 1882, crawl space, condo, and so on, is automatically filled in. So it saves a little bit of double entries from that standpoint of I've already put it in once in the quick quote, so it allows me to continue on from here. After filling in the rest of the information into the system, I still have the ability to, from the review screen, of actually processing and confirming that as a full appointment or marking that as quote only. So just because I've come through here and collect, and that's what the call center actually does, is they still go through and collect all this information, mainly where the address of the property is, the client information, any additional services that they're thinking about, and so on. They still collect all of that so that they can get to the review screen and then be able to, even if they end up clicking quote only from the review screen, then they have the information for that client. They can send out emails to them, kind of just putting your name and your information back in front of them. Please reach out to us if you want to make this into a full or lock this this appointment in, or if you have additional questions about our services. When you are logged in, you will have, this is very minor, but you will see this little cogwheel that flies out, the little Next Assistant. So you have the ability to say don't send notifications. So if you do not want to send notifications to any party upon actually scheduling the email because you want to hold off on, for a couple hours to check something out, you can go ahead and book this all the way through, check don't send notifications, and then it'll still alert you on your profile that notifications have not gone out yet, but essentially it gives you time to make any adjustments or follow up on anything that you might want that might need to be changed prior to the initial emails going out. So that would be clicking the cog in the upper left-hand corner, and then don't send notifications. If you choose to not show inspector specifically requested as a field right here, you still have the ability to check or not check it. You can see that those do work in conjunction. When one's checked, it checks it or unchecks it. But let's say that you just don't want you're trying to pare down the number of fields that are shown here. We still want to give the ability for the call center representative or your admin to still notify or indicate when an inspector is specifically requested, because their pay might, or their bonus, or their attaboy, or what have you, might still be tied to that. So even if you've pared down your fields, and that can be a field that you just choose to hide, you still have the ability to check that. Let's see, can we customize additional services offered based on the property? Well testing is only offered if the house has a well. Currently, we don't have the ability to do that, mainly because I think mainly because we don't, in that particular example, we don't ask if the property has a, that's not actually an appointment field. If that is an appointment field or is in the future, then I guess we could probably tie additional services to different attributes of the booking process. So it is conceivably it's possible. It's not set up that way to do it that way currently. Mobile home foundation cert, if it's a mobile home. So is that would that be set up as an additional, say, an additional agreement to be filled out? If that's the case, then you can set up agreements to be filled out based on property types, inspection types, and additional services. All right. Let's see. We've run through quite a bit. Gone on for 2 hours now. Appreciate everyone sticking in here, and really we had a lot to cover. I went through a lot of stuff quickly. I'm sure I've glossed over several areas that maybe could use a little more time and a little more expansion. I do need to. It does bring me and brings us back to my forefront of my mind of the tutorials. So we do have a tutorial section here, and it needs to be updated. So there are, a number of videos that you can watch here. However, several of them are outdated just because they are quite a bit old. Whether it's even if they were a couple months ago, and several of them are actually closer to probably 10 or 12 months ago. A lot of stuff has changed. We have added a lot of enhancements, a lot of features, and it may have changed, especially in the pricing model setup and some of those screens, but it may have changed actually it just functions differently because we've added so much more. So we will get around to adding additional video tutorials that are 2 to 4 minute bite-sized pieces of essentially what we're discussing tonight. And so those will be updated and added here, I hope in the near future, and we definitely need to pencil that in. Any more questions? And of course, you you guys can reach out to myself and Chris. He's been on the call at any time. We are here to help. We're excited about the system. We're excited about all the new users and new accounts that are being set up. And really, we've got a lot of buzz with people that are excited, especially as we move into the winter months and getting the next account set up, and they obviously have a few free moments, maybe a few extra moments to breathe and think about a software switch or set up a scheduler for the first time. It's a great option, and we're certainly excited about how far we've come in the past several months, and certainly over the past year. All right, if there's no additional questions from you all, then we can sign off for tonight. But I certainly appreciate everyone being on and joining us. And please feel free to reach back out as you set up your system to both Chris and myself, and we'll get his information back out to everyone. And he is available. We're both available, and excited to have you guys come on board and get you set up. So thank you again, guys, and you all have a great night.